Hey guys! So today I just wanted to discuss my journey into becoming a registered nurse, and I'm making this video more so for those young nurses or those pursuing the profession who want to start their career to become a registered nurse. It's going to be a difficult profession, but I hope that my story is going to inspire you in one way or another, because I want to teach you and explain to you the lessons that I've learned through the years as I've gone to school, had my internships, had my practice as a young nurse, and eventually made it big after, 13 years of practicing as a registered nurse now. I'll tell you this much, it was not an easy journey. It was very difficult, but I've learned a lot of lessons along the way, and I hope that my lessons will teach you or calm you down, leave you not as stressed, because the profession overall is very fulfilling, but it's stressful, and I get it. So, it all started in middle school when I was influenced by my parents. Being Asian and amongst other Asians, it was a very common theme for myself and my peers and my cousins to either become a doctor or a lawyer. Because they thought, as we grow older and make something of ourselves, being a doctor and a lawyer, it was a high-paying job. It was a high-status job. It gave us reputation, and it was the job to pursue. Similar to you or myself, a lot of our parents, they migrated from foreign countries. It was hard for them. They came here thinking this is the land of opportunity. They worked hard for us. They sacrificed their lives. They came to a foreign nation to try to find work, to have a family at such a young age, and to just push us to make sure that we don't fail them and to fail ourselves, because this was a land of dreams for freedom. Our parents, did not want us to struggle like they did. They wanted us to find a high-paying profession, pursue stability in our lives, and to develop a legacy for their future generations, which I am the first generation here in the United States, and I plan to have children, and I hope that they will take on this legacy, work hard, and make sure that we never become homeless. So back to when I was in middle school, going into high school, at the time my grandmother had Alzheimer's disease. I was in first person observing her actions. Now, if you don't know anything about Alzheimer's disease, you become very forgetful. Your brain is affected and you don't remember things like you used to. You're more likely to remember old memories rather than present memories. So if you talk to someone who has Alzheimer's, they may tell you stories from the past, stories from several years ago, but if you ask them, well, what did you eat this morning? They couldn't even tell you. Or what did you do last week? It totally flies over their head. So I was watching her give me repeated statements, repeated actions, and then eventually over time, her behavior silenced, and she was not able to take care of herself, and then she ended up being in a nursing facility because she couldn't eat, she couldn't walk, she couldn't think. She pretty much reverted back to becoming a baby. So I thought to myself, what the fudgery is going on with my grandmother? This is what life comes to. I just couldn't understand it. So being as young as I was, and all that I could comprehend at the time, I just lived my life and just went about my business. I was more focused on going to school, being part of a social club, joining a sport, trying to understand why are my friends and my crushes acting a certain way. I didn't understand human behavior. And then on top of that, trying to cope with the nuances of life, like starting my period and getting acne on my face and my back called acne. So eventually when I was in high school, I took a lot of advanced classes. I was very studious. My father used to always say, go to school, do well. I was very pressured into making sure I got straight A's because that's the Asian theme. We all do well in school. And the stigma against Asians is that we're really good at math. And fortunately, I was blessed with being good at math, as well as the sciences. So once I took as many advanced classes as I could, I went into college, a very prestigious school in the University of California system, which is UC Irvine. And I was like, wow, I finally made it. I finally made it into a pre-medical engineering program. I was so proud of myself, as well as showing to my parents and my aunties and uncles that I did it. I finally did it. I'm going to a school and I'm going to become a doctor. So some lessons I learned while going into my pre-medical program, I wanted to share it with you. Number one, my biology class was incredibly competitive. I would study hours and hours on end, trying to memorize the entire book, trying to just absorb all of the material. And surprisingly, if I ended up getting a B- in the class and everyone else got a A-, that means I essentially failed. I failed the class with a B minus because our tests were graded on bell curves. Meaning if a majority of people got A minuses and I'm at the bottom of the bell curve, I failed. So my lesson to you is school is very competitive. You're amongst many smart people. So just try your hardest. It's not easy, and it's especially not easy when you need to get over a 3.0 in order to graduate or to get into a nice program for your graduate degree. It's competitive, I get it. So just try your hardest. Always take good care of your health, exercise, eat well, and don't forget to spend time with your friends and your family, because those memories are just as important. Number 2, if you're interested in healthcare, get yourself into a program early, like a volunteer program, or start to work in the field of healthcare. Just do anything. For myself, I don't think I was not exposed to it early on enough. I went to my pre-medical program, and it wasn't until I think maybe 2 or 3 years into my university degree that I decided that I was going to go volunteer at a hospital. And at that time, I stepped into a world of healthcare, and I was so confused. I didn't know really anything because I was so intimidated by such a large scope of practice. I mean, you can be a nurse, but how many fields of nursing is there? There's so many. So exposing yourself early can give you an idea of what's right for you, who are you as a person, what you think you might be best at. Your 20s is a time for exploration of your identity. So don't worry if you start something and then you realize you don't like it, because your 20s, that's when you're trying to find yourself. Number 3, your colleagues in college can be a distraction. If so, study alone. Or they can be a support. They can help you exchange valuable information about your classes, can give you work opportunities, and they can share the next fun get-together, because you need to relieve stress and don't forget about your social life. You need to go out there and just interact with people, because again, having a social life and interacting with others is going to help you in your profession as a nurse. But my advice to you is that if you want to know more about nursing in general or healthcare in general, ask people who are older than you, because you will come to find that those who are older are wiser, and they can share their experiences with you and give you the knowledge you need to advance. Number 4, writing is incredibly difficult. And if you don't practice it or you don't read often, you're never going to become good at it. So read as much as you can, write as much as you can, because you'll notice that reading often and writing often, it actually comes out in your spoken language. So when you can excel in that, you will begin to speak eloquently. You can gather your thoughts much better. You'll be able to formulate a discussion and an argument in an organized manner. It used to take me like probably a whole day to write a page on an essay in school. But now, because I'm so proficient in writing and I read often, anything I want to learn about, rather than just watching videos, I go online and I read articles, and it subconsciously changes the way you speak. And now when I write papers or like several pages of papers, it may just take me like 1 to 2 hours, because it's so nice when your thoughts can just flow out into your spoken words and you can just type everything right away. Number 5. So understanding human behavior, because nursing in general is a human interaction profession, it takes time through adequate socialization. We're in an era where we're always into our electronics. Everything is so easy for us because we're just at home. We can just look to YouTube and watch people through the screen, and we don't actually have to interact with people. And I know that during the COVID pandemic, that had a large effect on human behavior, because people were forced to stay home, isolated at a young age, and they were not given the time to develop those skills, to see how other people react to social problems and predict future outcomes of people's behaviors. So learning how to be empathetic, learning how to listen and to respond. And in nursing, listening is very important. You need to always listen to your patients before you respond. You always have to get the general story, kind of dissect it, take your time, think about it, and then respond. Because you can only say as much as you know. When you're able to eloquently say what you know, because you know how to write well, you read often, then other people can absorb your knowledge and they can learn from you. And more so, once you interact with a lot more people, you're going to be able to spot the bullshit. There are people out there that bullshit. That's the reality of life. They will uptalk you and say things to you that they don't mean. They'll lie to you. And that's a part of understanding human behavior, human interaction, body language. And over time, you're going to spot it. So I suggest, Get out there. Maybe you have some social anxiety. Maybe you don't get along with other people. Maybe you don't know what to say, but just show up. Show up, because your early 20s going into your 30s is a time where getting into the real world helps to identify human behaviors. So at the time of my graduation, I think I was so engulfed in just studying all day long, and I was in an engineering society, or a sorority, which wasn't like the actual sorority because we didn't party that hard or drink, and we weren't, I guess you would say, hazing each other or doing just very outrageous things for us to be in this club. I was only affiliated with them and maybe my roommates in college, and I didn't get out there very often. I didn't really know people, or humans, as you would say. That very little interpersonal, person-to-person interaction and knowledge, and with even less life experience in healthcare, I was confused. I realized that I was intimidated, because was I going to go into a hospital and become this great doctor that made decisions for people when I didn't even understand myself too much? And I didn't understand people's problems, healthcare problems, why it was happening. And my mind was just flooded with so much information. I didn't know as much as I needed to know. So a lack of knowledge, when you're stepping into a room with one-on-one with a patient or a person who's seeking to you and asking, what do I do? Why do I feel like this? A lack of knowledge can have you trembling. So I thought, what better option was there for me out there? Was I going to continue pursuing this medical doctor degree and be very confused about how to make major decisions? Because these doctors, they make decisions. They formulate an idea about how you should take care of yourself. And at that time, I knew that I couldn't do that. So the better option was, for me, instead of going to med school, because that was my initial plan, was to come back home and enroll myself in a nursing program. I ended up graduating with my engineering and pre-medical degree. I took some extra classes that I needed to go into nursing school. I ended up working as a nurse assistant while going to nursing school so I can be fully engulfed in the healthcare world. And then eventually, I graduated at the 2-year mark after my associate's degree. I worked at the hospital that I was doing my internship with, that was affiliated with my nursing program. And right out of graduation, they hired me. So make sure you get on good terms with the hospital that you work for, the hospital that you do your preceptorship with. Make sure you get to know the people there, and you can possibly work there like I did as a nurse assistant, and then the staff will notice you and potentially hire you. So get in there, be noticed, and just get your feet wet and dirty. So here's what I learned from being a nurse these past almost now, 13 years. So being in nursing school and actually working as a nurse is entirely different. The responsibilities are much different. And when you're starting school and you're in the hospital doing your preceptorship, stand around, watch as much as you can, ask as many questions as you can. And if you don't have the answer and you are at the hospital helping the nurse, just stand out of the way. Stand back, watch, and observe. You need a lot of observation. Watch the interaction between the nurse and the patient. Watch the patient's interaction with other people. Watch how they respond, the human behavior, the cues in the facial gestures and the body language. That way you can start to foresee how people are going to react and foresee how you need to treat patients under specific and certain circumstances. Number 2, working as a nurse can be the most stressful time your first year into being independent and being on your own. There's a lot of adjusting that needs to be done. So my first pointer is that you will enter a population that you have no idea about. So for my first year working as a nurse, I worked with the Armenian culture. I didn't know anything about their culture. I was a little bit culture shocked at the time. I had to understand the way that they would speak, their likes, their differences, what they're used to eating, and how they talk to others. And it was a big shock for me. But over time, I accepted it, and I was able to learn that people grow up differently. We're all not the same. One Armenian would also be different from another Armenian. So all in all, we need to treat humans as humans. We need to take care of people as humans. So whatever problem they present to you medically, it is our responsibilities as nurses not to be biased. It is our responsibility to treat the problem, to help them, and to make sure that their medical condition does not get worse. Second pointer, during your first year as a nurse, that makes it really difficult is that you can have 2 patients suffering from the same problem. let's just say patient 1 has a stomach bleed and patient 2 also has a stomach bleed, but both patients, they are suffering differently. They have other problems or comorbidities, you will say. So they cannot be treated in the same way. So a thorough assessment each time you come across a patient, and over time with more experience, you will become wiser, but it takes time. So in other words, the application of healthcare knowledge is variable. It's different from person to person, only because there are behavioral problems that can come into play, as well as other physical problems such as comorbidities, they would say. Allow yourself the time to learn these new skills. It's not easy, and it's going to come with time. Third pointer during your first year working as a nurse is that you need to learn the hospital's policies and procedures. This is just to avoid getting in trouble with an administration board that works for the hospital and the Board of Registered Nursing. Your license is on the line. Again, remember, you're working for a corporation, so if you do something to jeopardize the corporation, your license is on the line and they will come after you. So learn the policies and procedures, protect your license, because getting in trouble with legality issues is a time-consuming process and it requires a lot of financial responsibility. Also, you might end up growing a lot of white hairs from all the stress. So familiarize yourself with the policies and procedures. Another pointer during your first year of working as a nurse is that you will have difficulty time managing whatever is in your brain. You're trying to understand, do I go see this patient first or do I go see that patient first? You don't know who comes first, who comes last, do you come next? It's a confusing time. One minute there may be an agitated family member, and then the next minute your patient is sitting in their own poop and they're yelling for help. Next minute you're trying to figure out, oh my gosh, I'm late, I need to chart what's going on with my patients. And then the next minute your charge nurse or the person, your supervisor, is telling you, you need to go to your lunch break. It's been too long now. You need to get out there and go to your lunch, but you have all of these things to finish. And then on top of that, you've been holding your pee for the past like 6 hours and you urgently need to pee, but there's something else in the background, some other noise calling for you. So again, time management, it takes time. It takes practice on understanding, okay, I could just put this to the side. I don't need to worry about this right now. I'll come back to it. Give yourself time. It is stressful, I know. So after about 2 to 3 years, you start to feel more like a experienced, proficient nurse. You can begin to confidently answer questions and kind of recite the policies and procedures, but you know exactly where to go if you need to look something up. And you may actually become a preceptor at this time. So new oncoming nurses that are starting the field, you will be open to teaching them what you've learned in the past 2 to 3 years. And perhaps you've developed a family within the workforce, and you can finally rely on somebody to help you, to talk about your feelings with, to talk about stressful times with. And potentially you've developed this knack for wanting to take the time to teach your patients, because the first 2 years you've been trying to just stay afloat. You've been trying to gather your thoughts and trying to just make sure you do everything right so that you don't get in trouble. So between the years of 2 and 3, you enter a time of more relaxation, because you're not in survival mode and you're not like deathly afraid of losing your career. So year 2 and 3, you have something to look forward to, even though year 1 was incredibly stressful. So a fourth pointer I learned in my career as a nurse is that between the years of 3 and 5, you will begin to question your identity. I swear, this is like Erickson's psychological needs or something of that sort. You go through these phases as a nurse. So you start to wonder, is this hospital right for me? Can I reach out to other organizations that are less demanding and require different skill sets? You start to question whether going back to school is an option, to have more mental responsibilities rather than hard labor responsibilities. Because then again, nursing is very task-oriented. You have to get the tasks done under the provision of a medical doctor who's giving you the orders through the system or in person. And then you have to make sure you remember the policies that you have to follow. So, in other words, they say you do as a nurse. They say you do it. And if you don't do it, they're going to come after you. Also, between year 3 and 5, you may start to be more mentally free. So you'll start to develop a knack for researching things in healthcare, maybe information that's more pertinent to our current times, and may even begin to preach your healthcare knowledge because you're more experienced and more confident now to your family, your friends, your colleagues, or even your patients. Also, by this time, you're nearing the end of possibly paying off your tuition. depending on if you went to a university or a private school, because I know the private schools are incredibly expensive. Their tuition, I think at this point, is like 130,000 or more. And then the universities I've heard was over 100,000. And the benefits of going to a community college or a Cal State, it's a lot cheaper. So if you're lucky enough to get into those programs, you paid off your tuition probably after the first year. Or if your parents are supporting you, you're even in a better situation and you don't even need to worry about finances. So by this time, year 3 and 5, since you'll have more mental freedom, you'll be able to begin enjoying your hobbies more. You won't be as stressed out when you get home thinking about, did I do this right at work? You may be spending more money on useful or useless items because you have more money. You've saved up over the years. You've worked hard for the past 2 to 3 years. Or you may even be tied to eventually growing your own family, having children, trying to balance the nursing life and raising children. And from what I've seen, I don't have children myself yet, but these nurses somehow make it work. They work 3 days in the hospital. Some work more often in the night shifts, so that their partners or husbands or wives can work a 9-to-5 job in the afternoon. But somehow it will work. Working 3 days a week, 12-hour shifts, is doable to raise a family if you want to. And then my last pointer is that between the years of 5 to 10, when you become an expert nurse, and you realize that earning an income is not a problem, you've already reached the years of experience that you're getting paid well, and you'll start to reflect inwards about how to use your time wisely. You've dedicated so many years to schooling, so many years to just working just to get into the industry, so many years to developing the knowledge to become proficient and well-rehearsed in how you speak. I think perhaps is working less better, meaning working 3 days in the hospital but working incredibly hard with these really sick patients better, or is working more but in a more relaxing environment like at the clinic where you can just do repetitive tasks like checking vital signs, checking in patients, and preparing them just to be examined by the doctors. That may suit you. Whatever it is that you decide at that point, you are prepared because you've been in the most critical of situations in the hospital. Now, I'm only speaking to those who develop their experiences for several years in the hospital. I've known people who have left the hospital 2 or 3 years into their career because it was just too much. But even 2 to 3 years of experience, you're well rehearsed with how sick a person can get and how urgent or how quick you need to act in order to get them to the right place, get the right orders, and to intervene. But don't forget, healthcare is always changing. You'll always have more to learn, and you'll never get bored because every year there are new publications coming out from different healthcare industries. So stay up to date with the most recent knowledge. I still, at this point, and the reason why I'm doing this YouTube channel is trying to inspire you to read evidence-based research articles because that's where the scientists are doing their research. The researchers are doing their research and they're trying to update our knowledge every year because, again, things change. So I know it's difficult when you're starting off because you're just trying to read the book that you were assigned to and you're just trying to finish the paper that you're assigned to. But over time, once you've succeeded in our school education system, there is a world out there that is not only affiliated with our school system. There is a world out there, there's independent researchers. You can even find a lot of fascinating people online who take time in their own day to do research and to publish articles that show you, nope, this was not right. This is the new findings. So compare old knowledge, new knowledge, and that's how you become a reliable person who can spread information that can potentially help or save someone. Otherwise, understand that you're doing a great deed for society or your higher creation, your God, and just feel at ease with whatever plan you decide to take. I hope this message finds you well, future experienced nurses. The road is a tough challenge. I congratulate you for taking these first steps into the world of humans and their behaviors and problems and difficulties. So many complications. But I promise you, it's really rewarding. Good luck and goodbye!